Every day is a great day to be a Stranger Things fan. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I got some exciting stuff to talk about, as recently we got an article detailing Stranger Things: The First Shadow, the behind the scenes of the upcoming stage play, the production, what we can expect, how it can tie into the final season of the show, and more. So today I said, you know what? Let's read through this entire article, break the whole thing down, and talk about what to expect from this play. Now, before I get in this thing, this might be a bit of a longer video, so be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to that notification bell to help reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers here on the channel. Anything goes a long way. Really trying to make that final push. Comment some of your predictions for season 5 down below, and as always, check out the podcast link down below with myself and my girlfriend Kim for weekly episodes. But I just say we go ahead and dive into this article. So it's titled, "What does a mega episode of Stranger Things look like on stage inside the first shadow?" This article's from the Los Angeles Times, and I've already read through it, and I encourage you to go give it a read on your own as well. I'll link it down below. But this is just kind of painting the picture for what we can expect. I equate it to like a trailer through article form. So it starts by saying, next month the Upside Down extends its tentacles into London's West End with Stranger Things: The First Shadow, a prequel stage production that expands the world of Netflix's sci-fi horror slash blockbuster, and the creative team behind it hopes the play will be as groundbreaking as the series itself. For starters, it's already generating a lot of buzz, and I honestly don't know if any other television show on right now could have a stage play and generate this much buzz and hype already, so Stranger Things stays winning. We're about to bring the actors who've just been in this cocoon of a rehearsal room for several weeks into the theater. Producer Sonia Friedman says of The First Shadow, which is set to open in previews November 17th at the Phoenix Theater. 1 month from today just so happens to be the first day that like general audiences or preview audiences will actually get to see this play, but it's only in West End, which is like Broadway to London, and so hopefully it expands out into the United States and maybe even hits streaming eventually, but we'll have to wait and see, and I bet we'll have some more news on that when Stranger Things Day comes. Now, this next part really excites me. We've been making sure it can stand alone without the special effects because it's all about the story. We are going to blow people's minds. We are going to terrify with some of the most startling, extraordinary things with the physical production. Bring it on. If it's anything Stranger Things does, it's attention to detail in the visual effects department, so the fact that they're going full on practical as it is a stage play has me so excited for the day that I can hopefully actually watch this in person. And it just remains true to Stranger Things. Obviously, you can't have Stranger Things without some sort of visual effects flair, especially in the latter seasons, and it looks like this is just going to adapt that to the stage with practical effects. Hell yeah to that. The project originated with director Stephen Daldry, who approached Netflix's then content chief Cindy Holland after the show's first season aired. One of the conversations Stephen and I had been having was, what theater have we ever seen where you get genuinely scared? Daldry's co-director Justin Martin says, it was an interesting challenge and provocation. We talked about other Netflix titles, but this one felt like the most imaginative and the most challenging to try and find a stage language for. The goal is to figure out, what does a mega episode of Stranger Things look like on stage, adds Matt Duffer, who created the series with brother Ross. As we all know, the Duffer brothers rule, Duffer bros supremacy. It was a very long multi-year process to figure that out, but where they've landed is incredibly exciting. Now, as we get further in this article, it's really interesting how long they've actually had the idea for this stage play. I'll get into that soon. For the Duffers, the idea of expanding the Stranger Things universe in new forms was an exciting prospect. They're currently working on several spin-off shows, including a children's animated series and an anime series. The play exists on its own, but it also informs the narrative and characters fans know. So that chunk right there goes to show that yes, the anime series is happening. They are doing an animated kids show, I believe, and there are other spin-offs in the works that haven't been announced yet. To me, we might get some news for those on Stranger Things Day, but in reality, I think they're gonna save that for when the show actually concludes, because it could involve characters from our main Stranger Things show showing up in that. If that's the case, we obviously can't get it announced because that would spoil Who Lives or Dies if it takes place post Stranger Things in live action form. Now, since The First Shadow has been announced, it's been pretty evident that Henry Creel /01/ Vecna will be the main character at the forefront of this play, and it's going to give us more depth to him as we head into the final season. As we continue reading, it says, the idea was to explore Henry Creel and his backstory and fill in a gap that we don't explore in season 4. The play was being developed simultaneously with us writing season 4, so we were adjusting as we went. It was an interesting way to develop a story, but to do it concurrently like that made sure everything locks in mythology-wise. Now, this is a huge reveal. The fact that they were writing this play, developing it, if you will, while they were developing season 4 to make sure everything had continuity and was a smooth connection, that just goes to show the level of genius and care that the Duffer Brothers have for this franchise, and frankly should alleviate any worries that any of us have about, will they be able to stick the landing? Like, they know this material better than anyone in the world. They're the creators. They care deeply about it. I have full confidence they'll stick the landing, and this play is just going to make season 5 that much sweeter when we get to check it out. Even retcon things in season 4 and make them even better. Now this next part of the article is the real kicker. Development on the first Shadow began during season 2. That's mad, as season 2 came out in 2017, and they were writing it well before then. That means this has been in the works for quite some time. Daldry approached Friedman after seeing the magic and spectacle in her company's production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at London's Palace Theatre. The creative team spent time brainstorming the story during the early months of the pandemic with screenwriter Jack Thorne, but eventually decided they needed someone who knew the series intimately. Kate Treffry, a writer on Stranger Things since season 2, was an obvious choice for Daldry despite the fact that she'd never written a play before. Season 2 is really when we started to expand this world mythology, Ross Deffer says. So Kate knows that as well as us. She's been with us in the trenches for so many years that we were so happy that she had this opportunity to do this. So yeah, it's not just the Duffers who write every little detail of Stranger Things. They've got other writers in that writer's room that have brilliant ideas and contribute to these scripts for each season, and Kate Treffry is one of them, so they got her to help pen the script. From early on, no one wanted to simply remake the first season. Daldry wanted the story to be what Martin calls in the center of the conversation, rather than a secondary narrative, so a prequel made the most sense. And I'm gonna take a quick break from reading this to say, I think prequels are the move. Like in Hollywood, we get reboots, sequels, all these different things, prequels obviously, but I feel like the prequel most of the time works out the best, especially when it comes to TV. You look at Breaking Bad, one of the most acclaimed shows ever, it got a spin-off in Better Call Saul, and the thing a prequel can really do to excel is add a ton of depth to all supporting characters from a show that caused said spin-off prequel. Add depth to them so that you can view that original piece of media in a completely different light, have a deeper appreciation for it, and understand the characters even further. But also, prequels have the ability to tie a bow on events after that original piece of media, like Better Call Saul did. You look at something like Game of Thrones, another highly acclaimed series, it has a prequel right now with House of the Dragon focusing on the Targaryen family, and that show was excellent through one season. It feels early Game of Thrones with the political drama, and that's what I like about it. And that show is currently working at building up the Targaryens to add more depth to them, as, you know, we, the audience, only heard stories of the Targaryen dynasty. We're actually seeing it in full effect in this show, and through multiple seasons, it will make us appreciate that and maybe understand Daenerys and her family even more when we go back and rewatch Game of Thrones. So I think that any prequel has so much potential as opposed to a sequel, which could taint an ending point, say the end of Breaking Bad, say the end of Game of Thrones. If you went past that and did a sequel, that could do more damage than a prequel, in my humble opinion. You look at Star Wars, the sequels attempted to derail everything the original trilogy did. The prequels, they were confined to that original trilogy, so they knew what they could or couldn't do. With a sequel, you kind of have a blank drawing board. You can do whatever the hell you want. So I think a prequel is usually a more effective way to go from a storytelling standpoint, and it excites me that they're aware of this with the stage play. It goes on to say, when we met with Steven, we had just cracked this Henry Krill stuff in the writer's room. Ross Duffer says, we said, well, there might be an opening here, and Steven really fell in love with it. There are questions of why Hawkins, and how did all this stuff happen? Martin adds, referring to the show's fictional Indiana town, which becomes a hotbed of supernatural activity. This felt like a good way to address that. So like I just touched on with my whole prequel rant, it sounds like this is going to fill in the gaps, which is what a prequel has the most success at doing typically. So that's kind of all the setup for the play. This next section of the article is actually going to dive into the play itself, the plot, and what we can expect to see. The first Shadow, set in Hawkins in 1959, is told over 2 chapters. Several familiar characters appear, including Bob Newby, Joyce Maldonado, aka Joyce Byers, and Jim Hopper, who are in their last year of high school when a new student named Henry Creel arrives. Nearby, Dr. Brenner is getting his start in his lab. There are also new characters like Bob's sister, Patty Newby. And the writer, Kate Treffry, calls it an ensemble play with Henry Creel as the spine of the story. But beyond that, everyone involved is as tight-lipped about the plot as they are about the forthcoming grand finale of the Netflix original. So it sounds like they're keeping this thing under wraps, which is good. I imagine it's gonna have like revolutionary bits of information or details that are pivotal to understanding the final season of the show, but at the same time, maybe not. That could get contradicted later in this article. It's about outsider kids who come together to solve a mystery, Martin says, and in doing so, find themselves and each other. That's really ultimately what Stranger Things does so well and why so many people connect with it. That's valid because Stranger Things has these grand, visual effects, and we got Vecna, Demogorgon, Mind Flayer, but that's not why we watch Stranger Things. We watch it because of the characters, their deep connection, and the coming of age feel, and their ability to come together to solve these mysteries, and that's exactly what it sounds like this play is going to capitalize on, that idea and storytelling that we just love from Stranger Things. Treffry adds that it's also about the loss of innocence and coming of age and how you are changed changed and ruined and saved by these formative events that happened in high school. Coming of age, Stranger Things, handshake emoji. So hopefully you'll see that Hopper and Joyce and Bob are all presenting echoes of the trauma that is at the center of this play, she says. In the first season of Stranger Things, Joyce, Bob, and Hopper seem surprised by what's going on in Hawkins, but Treff Wright confirms there's an explanation for why they don't immediately connect it to their high school years. Bob's technically not in season 1, I'm just assuming they're referring to him off screen, or maybe they meant to type season 2 here, I don't know. But Treff Wright confirms there's an explanation for why they don't immediately connect it to their high school years. Now this is the big chunk of news from this article that's kind of been making the rounds on Twitter and different types of social media, talking about how something from this play could be presented to us that would retcon our viewing experience and our knowledge of the entire canon of Stranger Things, specifically Joyce, Hopper, and Bob's knowledge of everything. The climactic events that happen within these 2 stage episodes had to be something that could be written off as not magical or science fiction, she says. It had to be spectacular and make sense, but we had to go forward in honesty with our characters. So I'm real curious. Like, the thing I'm the most excited to see when it comes to this play is the inclusion of Joyce, Hopper, and Bob. And what did they actually know about Henry Creel and Brenner potentially, but before the final season? Are they gonna have their memory wiped? Like, what's gonna happen? I have no idea. That's the exciting thing, is that it could again retcon or add in information that we did not know, but that could make sense in the final season and add to the mystery of it all. It says that the Upside Down and its monsters are familiar to viewers, as Stranger Things has a very recognizable aesthetic, so a stage version needed to incorporate similar visuals. And apparently the main writer cross-cut scenes as she would in the show and wrote crazy visual effects sequences as she would in the actual TV show. And Matt Duffer says she wasn't limited by that because it just presented a challenge for Steven to solve, which is fun. The opening scenes of the play, I don't think anyone even knew if it was possible. I'm still not sure how they're doing it. So apparently the bar's been set high, and there's a line in this article that says it's taken to a new dimension of what's possible with a theater. And it sounds like there's a lot of pressure to make sure these visuals are great because they don't want to take the audience out of it, obviously. Now, nothing is going to match the quality of the show because that's computer visuals and they have so much time to do it. This is stage play, so it's very different. And again, earlier in this article, they said they wanted to do things more practical as it is a play, but it sounds like this is going to be pushing the boundaries for effects in stage plays as we know them. I'll read this tidbit here that's fascinating though. 59 productions are creating the video design and visual effects for the play, which will work in tandem with the illusions of Miriam Buther's set design. And Harrison says anything that can be achieved in film can be achieved in theater. In film, people want absolute reality for the effects to be visually real. In the theater, we have a level of imagination that we can use as well. For example, in the piece we're creating, there are a lot more blood and guts. Sounds like this could get pretty gnarly at times, which is pretty par for the course. Looking at Stranger Things Season 4, I think a lot of us have been desensitized. If you've seen the Saw movies or any horror films, like, we're all desensitized to violence. Vecna killing Chrissy, Fred, Patrick, Max, partially, but sort of disturbing. Limbs are snapping, bones are cracking, eyes are getting sucked into the skull. Like, that is graphic stuff. So I can imagine they will continue with some gory things here. You even, go back to the earlier seasons of the show. There's some pretty grisly imagery for Stranger Things, and I imagine this will follow suit. The writer says that the stage show is genuinely terrifying. It's scary like Stranger Things is scary. There's a little bit more guts and gore, and there's also real trauma. People are dealing with stuff. This sounds like some serious shit. You're gonna see some serious shit. That being said, this next part of the article sort of teases how it's going to relate to the show. They want to have visual continuity. They met with the creature designer from the series to make sure that everything sort of aligns, but they won't say which creatures appear in the play. And apparently, the original music recreates familiar synth theme song that matches the late 1950s setting. I can't wait to hear what they cooked up for that. Because Treff Wright wrote the play while season 4 was in development, the series writers were able to retrofit elements of that season to reflect the stage show. The events of the play will also help to enrich season 5, Matt Duffer says. There's a ton of conversation and dialogue between this play and the events that happen in season 5. It was about trying to create something that is canon, but where you don't have to see it to see season 5, but if you do, it'll make season 5 better. So I kind of equate this to an MCU Disney Plus series, if that makes sense. You do not have to watch those. Kevin Feige came out and said, you don't have to have Disney Plus and watch this to understand what's going to happen. If you watch The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, for example, you will see Bucky and Sam's friendship develop and obviously them overcome some trauma and individual things. Ultimately, though, you'll see Sam Wilson become Captain America. But if you watch Endgame and then you go watch this upcoming Captain America film, at the end of Endgame, Sam is given the shield by Steve, and so you can kind of just infer, oh, okay, yeah, he became Captain America after that. That's what it sounds like, because I don't know if this is going to be made easily accessible to audiences across the world. It could could make the rounds across the world, maybe on like a world tour, but either way, that's not as accessible as putting it on Netflix, so it can't be that pivotal, in my opinion, to Season 5 and understanding it. I feel like they'll just touch on every tidbit of information in the actual final season that they did in this show. And again, Matt Duffer says in this article he's hoping that as many people can see this as possible. They're thinking of ways that they could do that. The Duffers say they can't focus on spin-offs until they've landed the plane with Season 5, but so far they've enjoyed letting other artists reimagine their ideas. The article ends by saying this was originally pitched as a standalone story, and so to be here now is surreal, but this has been the most rewarding experience for us creatively. So all that's to say, this play is coming out in November. Stranger Things Day is in November, about 11 days before the play previews, and if I had to bet, we'll get some juicy piece of information for this play on Stranger Things Day. This play sounds amazing. It sounds like something that I think every Stranger Things fan desperately wants to experience, and so I hope it doesn't just stay confined to West End. I hope it comes to Broadway, off-Broadway in the United States, and you know, wherever else there are plays around the world, because if it is important remotely to Season 5, I feel like we deserve to have a fair chance to watch this, and that's why I think they're going to announce that eventually it'll come on streaming, much like with Hamilton or Newsies, where they have these high-quality productions of plays put on streaming services. I think that's what they'll do with this eventually. I love the world of Stranger Things. This is an expansion of that, and I kind of touched on it earlier, but give us this prequel, add depth to Henry Creel, and give us Joyce and Hopper in high school. One of my spin-off ideas has always been a show with young Joyce and Hopper in high school, so maybe this could low-key segue into that and maybe open the door to us seeing a show version of this stage play. That would be something special. Maybe the Duffer Brothers are cooking that up and they just can't fully announce that until, like they said in this article, they land the plane with Season 5, but regardless, I think we're in for a treat with this play, and of course we're in for a treat with Season 5, though it will be a while until they can film as the actor strike is still ongoing. The writer strike is resolved, but the actors are still fighting for what they deserve. Patience is key here. Stranger Things Day is right around the corner, so I'll have some videos there, but that was a fun one. A bit of a longer update video. If you guys liked it, let me know, and I'm trying to incorporate as many Stranger Things videos as possible because I love talking about the show, keeping the hype alive. It's my favorite show of all time, so let me know some of your predictions and your thoughts on this play news down below. That'll do it for this video. So hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers here on the channel. It'll mean a lot. Check out the podcast, link down below if you like, you know, listening to me and my girlfriend Cam talk for about an hour about all sorts of different stuff. You should just go drop a subscription to that down below. Thank you guys as always, and until next time, I'll see you guys on the other side. Upside down.